So I'm Dan White and I'm the Market Development Director at MCS. The MID, the Microgeneration Installation Database, is the record which started, I think it was January 2009, I think is the first record on there. And that I think was a solar panel, and it might even have been in Oxford, I'm not so sure about that. It now has 2.2 million lines of homes. So these are the homes, the households of these mostly individuals who've mostly invested their own money to put these amazing pieces of technology on. And they range from 5,000 wind turbines, nearly which all were done a long time ago now, through to almost 300,000 solar panels just this year. Be they researchers at the sort of individual level, through to universities, through to charities, crucially governments. A huge amount of government policy is written off the information which is drawn from the MID. Increasingly it gets fed back to manufacturers and installers themselves to help them plan their businesses and run their, build their futures in a better way. But other parts are about the gigawatt of solar capacity that we added last year. Now that's a third of a power station. Some of that is about that if there are too many heat pumps in a given town, then you start to threaten the local grid. So the network operators need to understand that. Some of that is about whether or not a training grant given out by government actually turns out with more installers joining the scheme. So the data gets used in all kinds of different ways and has an incredible importance because of that, because you don't actually know where your granular piece of data might be. You might be putting in the price of something, and that might turn into a policy decision, or it might turn into an investment policy in a finance house. We just don't know where that will go, and therefore it's incredible. It's very important to consider the whole rather than any given field, because actually they all interact with each other and they build this picture that is the MID. Integral, central, everything, all of it, better words for that. The installer creates the certificate for the consumer. There are three parts in there. There is a product certificate, the certification for the physical product. There is the installer's certificate, their demonstration of competence and compliance, but they come together to this certificate for the consumer, my friend Mrs. Jones. Now that certificate is created by the installer, and everything that it is built upon it, all the compliance which is built from that, all the consumer protection which is built from that, all of that consumer record. So when you sell that house in 20 years' time, that data will still be what travels with it. And the installer is responsible for that. That's part of the responsibility of certification, being part of a certification scheme. So the installer is the creator. And the attention to that is something which I think is going to become increasingly important going forwards, because the data is stretching into new areas and new uses and new thoughts, some of which we don't really know about yet. So getting it right now and keeping it accurate and thinking slightly about it before you put it in will facilitate some of those maybe future questions that we don't know the answers from yet. Yeah. Anybody through the dashboard. So the dashboard was built to give a window into the data. We actually add to it. So we map it onto housing types, we map it onto ownership types, we map it onto regions, we map it onto locations, all that kind of stuff. And that's intended to give a completely free to use access to whatever nature. We ask for a login because it means that we can track usage, but after that it's up to you. Behind that, there are several data points which we don't readily share. So where somebody lives, how much they spent on something, what is physically on there, on that home and attached to that address. But some of that data is used by government. They might want to cross-check against previous subsidies. They might want to make sure they're not loaning twice against a given property. So some things are used everywhere. Some things are very restricted. Some of that is simple GDPR. Other elements are that we believe that we do have a commercial responsibility to installers and manufacturers not to let their data go where it could be a detriment to them.